Vince went out of his way constantly to belittle JR at almost every turn that he could get.
Russo'sBrand.com, where the pros are the pros. What's next, Jeff Farrell?
I wanted your guys' thoughts on this theory by Kevin Nash. So in the Mr. McMahon documentary, Vince said something that he has multiple computers running in his head at all times. And Kevin Nash thinks this is him admitting that he has schizophrenia. Nash said on his podcast, I just thought, wow, man, of all the things to say and all the shit that's going to happen moving forward, you basically painted to me that you're a schizophrenic and you have three of you. You just told me that you have three of you. That explains so much of his personality.
Yeah, but if that's the case, Al, I hear what Kevin is saying, but if that's the case, Al, couldn't that kind of get Vince off the hook?
I don't think so. No.
No?
I don't think so. No.
Because isn't that kind of like somebody not being able to stand trial because they're mentally incompetent? Isn't that kind of similar?
Vince McMahon is very competent and would be deemed competent to stand trial. He would never. I don't think they could ever designate him as completely, unless his health and his mental well-being right now has declined so dramatically. But otherwise, the Vince we know was quite mentally competent. I mean, let's face it. Was he a little bit of a whack job? Absolutely. With all the different stories and that I've heard over the years of interaction with Vince, and I'm sure you've got tons of them, where he just weirdest, unnatural behavior that in no way, shape, or form resembles anything that a normal person would do. But then, you have, when I say that, I have to also say, then there's this other side of Vince that I witnessed where he was this loyal to a fault, take care of people kind of guy. You know what I mean? They go out of his way. And then there was this other side that was just sometimes was quite honestly like a detestable human being. I mean, just the way he would treat JR, basically bullying him. That's the only word that you can come up with to describe his relationship with JR. And JR was was clearly an advantageous hire for Vince, both as a commentator and as a manager of talent, and being in charge of talent relations and the way he operated that, and the talent that he brought in to accentuate the roster of WWE. I mean, he did a really great job.
He did.
And Vince went out of his way constantly to belittle JR at almost every turn that he could get.
Do you think that had a lot to do with, though, Al, let's be honest, do you think that had a lot to do with JR allowing him to do that? Yes, obviously. Well, that comes down to anybody bullying anybody. It comes down to, let's be honest, people will treat you the way that you allow them to treat you. Right. You don't create boundaries, but of course, Vince, knowing that he's got an upper hand because he's JR's boss, and that power dynamic, of course, creates a lot of that opportunity for somebody to become a bully in an adult life. I was reading a weird, surprising story that Eric was telling on. I read it online, I guess, on one of his shows. But Eric said he was written into the Kiss the Ass Club, the Kiss My Ass Club, and he was supposed to kiss Vince's ass on TV. And Eric said that he told the writers he was uncomfortable with that, and when he showed up for TV, they took it off. It was no longer there, which kind of surprised me, because I would think if he said he was uncomfortable with it, Vince would have doubled down. Yeah, typically he would. I'm sure Vince probably had a little more of a different view and respect of Eric Bischoff than he did of a lot of the people that worked for him. Yeah, and he probably didn't know him that well, like JR or the other people involved in that, Right, yeah. That whole Kiss My Ass Club thing was a really goofy gimmick, but it worked to get heat on Vince. And, you can't, like I always say, you can say and impugn Vince in any manner that you want, and 98 to 99% of it will be true.
but you can't, as a boss or as a leader in this respect, not in all respects, but in this respect, you can't deny the fact he would never ask anyone to do anything he was not willing to do himself.
I'm going to push back on that.
Okay.
Because I had a problem with this then, and I look at it now, and I'm like, holy shit, Al, listen, I know you. I know the type of individual you are. I know the type of man that you are. You know, we see we see that every week. Okay. I know you have women on the roster. I know you got a lot of women on the roster. Okay.
Yeah.
Al, when I was writing the Attitude Era, it was all blue collar versus white collar. That was it. That was the story, bro. Every blue collar worker in the world was living vicariously through Austin, telling, Vince, and that was the story, period.
Right.
Al, when I left, that's when it became Vince making out with every woman on the roster, roping every woman on. Wait, let me just say this. Let me say this, and doing all that. I remember watching it at the time, saying, bro, what are you doing? I myself in a million years would have never done that, because I would have known those women involved could not say no, bro. No matter how uncomfortable they were, whether they had a boyfriend or husband, they could not say no. So isn't that kind of like I'm making them do something that they wouldn't want to do?
I'm not talking about that behavior. I'm talking about from a standpoint of like the Kiss My Ass Club. He ended up kissing I think it was Rikishi's ass or somebody's ass, or Regal's. I'm talking about seeing him numerous times backstage cleaning up the building, picking up after people. He would never ask somebody else to do that if he didn't do it himself. And that's the stuff I'm talking about. He would never ask somebody to show up in shape when he himself wouldn't have been in shape. He kept himself as an example of what he expected from his wrestlers. So I'm not putting Vince McMahon over. I want that understood. Okay. I mean, like I said, there were aspects of him that were detestable. I'm simply showing the other side of things that I saw of his behavior, that as a leader in regards to asking people to do something he wouldn't do himself.
You would never in a million years have girls on your roster making out with you.
No, not at all. I mean, no.
That's so wrong. That's so wrong on so many levels.
And it was not, I don't think it was good business, because what did it do? Yeah, except for, if there were a case where, like in this Trish Stratus story, I remember, she finally got back over on him and got the heat back, got that payoff. That's one thing. But then there was a lot of it that was just obviously Vince self-indulgent, doing it for himself.
Hey, Al, before we get off the subject, did you see the part about the 3 computers?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
What was your takeaway, Al?
I don't know if it means that he's schizophrenic, because from what I understand, that's a lot worse than him just having three aspects, in his brain all at the same time. I think it was kind of a confession of the fact that he could not separate Mr. McMahon from Vince McMahon anymore. I think the two of them bled together, and he just couldn't keep track of it any longer.
Al, what do you think it is that's such a weird thing, bro? Because listen, there are quite a few people like that in wrestling. You could say Ric Flair.
We've talked about that.
I know, but my question is, what is the difference between the person who can separate it, like Al Snow and running around with a head, and Al Snow, the person who can separate it, and the person who can't? What do you think that difference is?
There's really no difference at all. That's again, like I've tried to explain, a lot of the etiquette that was developed in this business, the constant shaking of hands and saying thank you and showing appreciation, and was all to remind you that it was a work, that it wasn't real, because you have to so much believe in who you are and why you're out in that ring to get the audience to believe it. That a lot of guys, a lot of times couldn't separate. That's why we had Wrestlers Court, was to kind of jokingly and gently kind of nudge smarten guys up and, hey, you're crossing the line here. Let's put you back, let's put you back on the rails, because you're starting to believe the old saying, oh, he's believing his own publicity. Guys all the time would, the who do you ever beat type of thing. And it's like the same people you did, the ones that were told to lose for me. And that attitude is very easy to slip over into. And and if you're Vince McMahon, certainly not condoning it, can understand it. If you're Vince McMahon, think of this. You got Vince McMahon, he's built his own world.
Yeah, own world. Yep.
There's nobody to say no to him.
Yeah.
How easy is it now for him to slip across and go off the rails and slip across the line and really start thinking he's Mr. McMahon 24 hours a day?
Yeah.
And his behavior reflects that. And there was no stopgap there. There was no Wrestlers Court to have Vince attend. There was no other people, no peers in his world that could say, hey, brother, you're going a little too far. You've seen it. I've seen it a lot. There are lots of the boys that they slide across the line, and man, they believe 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They walk around like they are the thing that when they went to the ring, they really believe they're the singular star and that they themselves made it that way. I remember, the office sent me one time to kind of liaison or agent this. It was one of those reality shows, and a couple of the divas were going to be on the show, and one had the title at the time. The show obviously was not going to air for 4 or 5 months. The diva wanted to have the title with her on the show. And then the office is like, no, because we don't know if she's going to have it when this airs.
Makes sense.
So please tell her. I had to stand there for at least 30 to 45 minutes in a discussion explaining to her why she could not wear it on the show, because there was no guarantee that 6 months from now, and her telling me, well, I earned it. I won this title. And I'm thinking to myself, no, you didn't. You did not win it, but she so had convinced herself that she had done it, and that she had climbed and went through all of this effort to, like a real athlete would, to achieve a championship. She really had believed that was the case, because that was the whole conversation from her end was, why would I not, want to wear this that I've earned on the show to show that I'm the champion because I won this title? And that's just one example, because the business has always been, when you really think about it, it's a very weird dichotomy, in the sense that you can never be a star without someone else helping to make you a star. Your objective when you go to the ring every single night is to be that star. Even if the business is not for you, but for someone else that particular night, you got to help that other person be a star. But at the same time, you're wanting to be that star.
That takes a special person.
And then you get into the whole title thing where it kind of, for a shoot's an honor and it's a sign of respect, and you feel like you did earn it all the years, but yet really it's just a prop that you give to. Sometimes you don't, like Undertaker, you don't give him the title. He doesn't need it.
Right.
It's not going to get him more over. It's not going to get him more heat. And the only reason you're putting that title on somebody is just to put more gravity to the consequence of the wins and the losses, just so that we can help a person get over or help someone get heat. That's
Al,
it.
I swear, who I spoke to yesterday, and I had I've been wanting to speak to him for so long, man, just because I knew he'd have a million freaking stories. but I swear to God, talking to him yesterday, nobody in the business has this mentality today. Steve Lombardi.
Oh, yeah.
Steve Lombardi knew exactly why he was there and did not have a problem with it, and knows there are stars and there are star makers, is what he said. He knew exactly what he was there to do, bro.
There are guys you can draw a house with, and there are guys you use to build a house with.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why we called them carpenters. Guys like George South, very incredibly talented and underrated worker, a real worker. Same with Steve Lombardi, a real worker.
Yeah.
And you could not build stars without having those carpenters to lay the foundation and be able to establish them.
Yeah.
Because you needed those guys in the business. That's another thing we don't have in this business, is we don't have carpenters anymore. We don't have guys that are just as talented as a guy on top was, and yet he'll never be on top because people aren't going, for whatever reason, don't know. It's not because he's not good. It's not personal. Nobody dislikes him. He's not going to get over. He's not going to draw. No different in Hollywood. You have character actors, and then you've got, actors that are probably not nearly as good as the character actors are in the actual talent of acting, but they're now the stars. They're the ones that are being pushed. They're the ones that are being marketed. They're the ones that are being put at the top of the thing because they draw an audience, where the character actor, is very good, very solid. Nobody's going to buy it.
Same with sports. Same with sports. You got your team coming off you got your players coming off the bench. You got, same exact thing. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, you've got that lead quarterback, but your backup quarterback's just as good.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, he's not marketable, and that's, again, the business, which everyone in it now seems to forget, is we're doing all of this for one singular reason. That is to try to motivate people to watch it. On TV, but most importantly, and this is the hardest job that exists, and that is, and not with this bullshit of just that today. Oh yeah, ever. It has always been the hardest thing to do, which is to motivate someone to leave the comfort, safety, and security of their home, walk out of the house, get in a car, go through the time and effort and aggravation to drive a distance to a building, nowadays pay an enormous amount of money to just park their car, pay then even more money to get into a building, to sit in seats. Let's face it, you would never voluntarily ever sit in those seats otherwise. They're too small, they're too narrow, and you have no leg room whatsoever. None. And yet you'll sit there uncomfortable around people you don't want to sit around, that you would never, ever socialize with. And you'd pay for food you would never want to pay for to eat, to watch that person do their job. And that ultimately, that's the hardest thing to do. Mm-hmm. And everything you hear me speak about protecting, I'm not talking, when people, the idiots who go, oh, kayfabe, dude, that's ridiculous. Kayfabe's dead. Everybody knows everything now. That's not protecting the business. Protecting the business was doing everything you could to make it less of a challenge to accomplish the very thing I just said, motivating someone to pay to see you. Because again, it's already it's an enormous uphill climb to get people to do it. Now you're going to make it even harder on yourself by something as simple as, hey, you sold the audience this product, this guy, this person that they believe in, and now you're going to go on social media and you're going to give them something else. So now they feel foolish, and they feel like this guy's clearly not real. Why would I ever believe in who he is? Well, now if I don't believe in who you are, I'm not going to believe in anything you do or say.